Hi.
Hi, we are live. Okay, wonderful. I'm gonna start admitting people. Okay, so many people joining. Wonderful. We'll give people a few more minutes to trickle in and then we'll start. Oh, so many familiar faces. Great. All right. So there's still a lot more people joining, but I think in the interest of making it worth for everyone who is so on time, we're going to start because we have so much to go through today. And I know that at the end of these meetings, time always gets really short. I want to say, first of all, welcome to a really wonderful and I think quite celebratory call today, which is really quite unusual because we have so many different communities that are gathered here together today to, I think, launch what is, I think, quite the wonderful project and a really, I think, wonderful initiative that I think is very early stage still, but we want all of you to be there quite early on to help us shape this. And this initiative is the Longevity Prize, which is co-initiated by VitaDAO, the Methuselah Foundation, and Foresight. And I'm super, super thrilled to introduce you to Vincent and Kat, who many of you already know virtually and in person, but they can tell you a little bit more about the prize came about. Then we'll tell you a little bit more about the first prize. And then we'd love to hear from our judges. I do want to say we're streaming this live on YouTube, so I'll share the link to that again here in the chat if people want to share that with your communities who can't be here, but you have kind of the ones who are in this call right now anyways, you have kind of like a behind the scenes look, and we would love for your comments, feedback, questions. There will be time for that later on today when we're discussing and brainstorming a few prizes. Okay, wonderful. Without further ado, I would love to introduce you to Vincent and Kat from VitaDAO.
Yeah, excited to chat. So maybe for the kind of very brief history of how it came about. So kind of we started with VitaDAO like on experiments how we could explore funding like new mechanisms to fund longevity research and open efforts. And together with Keith and Lifespan, we created a Gitcoin credetic donation round for longevity research with VitaDAO joining and Vitalik joining with 500,000. And then kind of like in the interest of creating with VitaDAO also some non-profit philanthropic efforts, I just was excited to explore the idea of a longevity prize, not expecting that there would be much donations to even work with. But then the round ended up, I think, generating like 200,000 in donations. And then I was okay, we need to take this a bit more seriously, like doing something relevant. And then, invited Foresight and later then Methuselah and also Lifespan, and also discussing with others to join and explore how we could make the biggest impact with this, as well as grow it kind of in a, also inspired by Gitcoin in a more crowdsourced way. So like to make it very open from the beginning and not like a secretive prize that gets developed over 10 years with 5 people and then gets announced with a big splash, which I think is also great, but doing it from the first day, in the open, inviting kind of like also many of you to help shape this prize, who I think all have like an interesting perspective to add, like what are the main bottlenecks or main incentives that are currently potentially missing to move the needle. Yeah, so that's kind of like the rough overview. And I think more as a midterm, I think vision is really to, of course, scale this also from the participants that can basically suggest prizes. Like right now, it's literally this shared Google document, which is still a bit chaotic, to just brain dump ideas and like comment ideas on prizes. But the idea is really that like the jury can help make a choice which of those prizes make sense and help design them as well as suggest their own prizes. So maybe if Sebastian, if you want to speak very briefly about the first prize you helped design on the Hypothesis Prize.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Vincent. Thanks, everybody, for being here. So I prepared a brief statement, so I'll read off of it. Bear with me. So the first prize is the Hypothesis Prize. It's simply for people to generate new ideas. So I think Vitalik tweeted this recently, said that it's received wisdom that ideas are a dime a dozen and that execution is the hard part, but that's in his view not true. And so I think there is space for new ideas, and there's really a lot in the literature. So prepared statement. The scientific literature is massive. It's unfathomable. We have over a century of accumulated knowledge available to everybody, which is not behind paywalls, of course, but there's Sci-Hub for that. And despite that, not many people are reading it. We take it for granted, especially publications from decades past. But this huge library has not been systematically mined for geroprotective therapeutics that could ultimately form the basis of a longevity biotech or long bio company. Personally, I've launched a bunch of companies in this space and have been a venture investor in several more. And most of these companies started with somebody just reading the literature and reaching out to the authors, the scientists who pioneered the work. So in my case, many of the best leads came from journals and the patent literature. So there's plenty of gold to be mined out there throughout the last century. And let me just give you 3 concrete examples. So the first is related to the immune oncology revolution. So the hottest area of biopharma for the last 10 or 20 years has been harnessing the immune system to surveil and eliminate tumors. But we've known that this works for over a century. There was a physician called William Coley who developed something called Coley's Toxins, where you basically grind up bacteria and you inject it into a patient with cancer. And not all the time, but a fair number of times, it elicits a really strong immune response, a cytokine storm that kicks the immune system into gear and eliminates the tumors. So this has been known for quite a long time, and it took almost a century to come back into fashion. Another example is cancer metabolism. So one example is the story of one of the greatest biochemists of all time, Otto Warburg. And he won a Nobel Prize for his work on respiration. And he also described something called the Warburg effect in 1921, which is aerobic glycolysis. So cancer cells will ferment sugar even in the presence of oxygen, which normal cells don't do. Normal cells use the oxygen and respire. And there's actually a really good book on Warburg called Ravenous. It just came out, Ravenous, Warburg, the Nazis, and the Diet Cancer Connection. And so, it wasn't until almost a century later in the 90s that clinical development started in earnest on cancer metabolism and the Warburg effect. Companies like Agios and recently Fayeth, from people like Professor Lewis Cantley, who discovered PI3 kinases. And so that's the second example. The third example is heterochronic parabiosis. So you guys will all know this, but basically you surgically link the circulatory systems of an old and a young mouse. The old mouse gets a bit younger and the young mouse gets a fair amount older. There seems to be bad stuff in the old blood. This was, again, performed in the early 20th century. It was sort of lost to history. And then Irina Convoy and others in the Tom Rando lab at Stanford in the 2000s revived it. And today it's one of the hottest areas, one of the hottest techniques in geroscience. So those are a couple of examples. And, there's also the matter of different languages. So there are great scientists publishing in Russian or Japanese or formerly in German. Back in the, early to mid 19th century, pretty much all science was published in German. And so there's a lot just sitting on the shelf that is not widely read if you're not reading in these other languages. Just like there are efficacious drugs that are approved and in use in these other areas, Japan, Russia, Europe, that are not available to Americans, for example, it's even more serious of a problem of siloing and lack of communication for preclinical research. So all of that, convinced us that this is probably the highest leverage way, in addition to funding people through fellowships, the highest leverage way to incentivize people to read the literature and propose experiments. So it can be people who are currently in labs, grad students or postdocs, and who have plans to actually perform that work themselves down the road, or it can be people who are just enthusiasts or scientists working in a different area who would like to bring it to our attention. So with that, thanks everybody for participating, and I'll pass the mic.
Perfect. Yeah, so amazing first prize, excited for it. And I think the timeline is end of this year that people can make their submissions, and I think there will also be prizes from even ranks 2 to N. So yeah, feel free everyone to apply. And then I just wanted to briefly mention kind of like on the very long-term idea that the idea is, of course, also that donors and the broader community can help influence the size of these prizes to a degree. So one idea that I just wanted to mention is basically that the jury, or like many of you, can help suggest which prizes should receive like a higher amount, but then individuals could donate to those individual prizes, of course, or to the whole prize pool, and then even get a matching from the prize pool. So people could donate $1,000, for example, to a specific prize, and then get a match from the whole prize pool to make this prize bigger. So the idea is to, of course, in that sense, also really open it up to also from the incentives for every donor to help drive the direction of the prize. But would also have to bring it back to Alison on the first, on the how you kicked off the workshops.
Thanks, Vincent. Yeah, I think, at the beginning when we started, first mulling on what kind of prizes would make sense and how can we actually allow this to become more of a platform or like a template or like an, like a kind of like meta tool for which communities can launch prizes and get together and really collectively advance the field. We thought, what better way to potentially kind of like soft launch or even workshop such a thing than by actually getting many of you guys together in one room. So many of you actually came to San Francisco earlier this year to do a workshop on longevity prizes, tech trees and tools. And it looked like this. I think you can raise your hand in the Zoom icon if you want, if you were there. It was really wonderful. We had a ton of people that are here at the workshop as well. And after that workshop, actually, a few people submitted the first one-pagers of like rough drafts for what a hypothesis prize could look like. It also got mentioned in Forbes. And I think, it really like already had a first kind of like splash. And we got really excited by the proposal submissions that we already had. So this is just to say the first prize is now live. You can now, from this moment on, go to the website. You can submit a prize for a hypothesis that you would like to see solved that you currently think is undervalued. And many have done so already. And like we're really looking for pretty niche and pretty ambitious proposals there. That's not the only prize though that we have. We have another one, and for that, that's still in the making. But I think Dane from Methuselah can already foreshadow you a little bit about what you have to expect from that new prize.
Cool. Hey everybody, I apologize if I sound like I'm in a jungle. I'm not. It's just Virginia, but it is swampland, so it's very loud. But anyway, I'm super happy to be here, and I feel incredibly lucky to be able to participate with you guys in this amazing prize that you put together. So before I get into what you asked me to actually talk about, I just want to say really, really quickly that I was so incredibly enamored with this, the prize structure, the kind of consortium structure, the fact that it's set up to, I mean, anytime you're trying to do something that's audacious as solve aging, there's a million different ways that you could maybe do it. There's a million different ways that you can, move the needle, right? And so for you to really be able to have, you can't put all of your eggs in one basket in terms of funding and that sort of thing. It's really, really, really great to be able to have a community that is actually kind of self-designing a series of prizes, a long-term series of prizes in order to solve the problem. So I was very, very excited about that structure. Obviously, like Methuselah, we got started actually doing prizes. We originally, a million years ago, like 20 something years ago, when we first got started, we actually wanted to call ourselves the Longitude Prize Society, because we were just completely excited about what had happened with the Longitude Prize. The fact that actually there was this huge attractor that was put out there that actually solved the problem, because at that time it wasn't extremely common sight, obviously, from X Prize was getting started around that time as well. But anyway, I love the prize structure, and I think it's very, very cool that the community is actually kind of self-designing this thing as it's proceeding, versus as Vincent said, instead of taking a decade to design something and put everything there, and then who knows if it actually does the job. So that's really, really cool to me. But anyway, we're going to be doing another prize. So we're going to be doing a biomarker database prize. This is very, very early in development. It literally started like last week. So feel free, literally everyone on this call, to send us any ideas you might have for what you would want in the ultimate biomarker open source database prize with a great API that can tap into every single sort of thing that we could ever want, so that we can, instead of waiting for the next paper to come out, we can actually have crowdsource the data as much as we possibly can about actually where these biomarkers are. So this is a project that Aaron came up with. So if he wants to say something about it as well in a minute or two, that'd be really, really cool. But it's something that we had started in separately without really telling anybody. We had worked on a database or a biomarker kind of project with Max Pito. If anyone, I'm sure some people here know Max, you might even be on the call. We had worked on this a little while ago. We basically just ran through all the literature and put all of the biomarkers together to just kind of figure out where things were correlating. But of course the data is not great, and it's not consistent. And so anyway, I just want to mention this is something that's in the mix, and please, any ideas, send us your wish list of all the features that you want, so we can make an awesome prize that will actually get the job done. All right, that's it for me. You guys are awesome.
Wonderful. Well, I think this gives us a fantastic segue, because we're now getting to the part where we introduce the judges. And Aaron, as one of the judges, can perhaps say, very briefly, just a few words about yourself. And then if you have anything to add for the Biomarker Prize, now is a great time to do so.
All right. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm Aaron King. I'm working for Foresight Institute. And I've been helping with the Longevity Prize for a while. So the Biomarker Prize was a pretty interesting idea. It's basically just a really simple thing. It's like, we need to have one location where we pull all this data about biomarkers of aging into a single repository that can be accessed publicly. And you can just go through and you can just have it all in one place, rather than trying to look through a million different papers to find little snippets of information from all over the place. It'd be really helpful And there's other things, there's other layers of value that can be added on top of it, things that you can do to, APIs, and then there's possible associations with the stuff that CureDAO is doing, and other organizations. And I'm sure somebody out there probably just has like a repository of biomarker data, and then it's just not public, perhaps. So we'll find out all that stuff by doing this prize. And then there's other people with similar ideas about, I think Christine mentioned earlier, another biomarker thing, so we can try to fold all that in. But I'm really excited about this whole project, and I like small, like really high value, small, I guess, cost projects that will have a high impact. And I'm looking forward to what comes out of this.
Wonderful, great. Thank you, Aaron. Next one up, and that's again a great segue, is Christine. So Christine, if you'd like to introduce yourself, if you want to say a few words maybe about the prize now. After the introductions, we want to have like a few more minutes to discuss a few of the prizes. But if you are a judge and you already have like a blurb or a few keywords on the prize that you would like to propose, maybe do it now. And yeah, we're keeping the intros quite short, but I think then we already have a good idea of like what to work with if we do a little brainstorm afterwards. So Christine.
Great, thanks, Allison. I'm Christine Peterson. I'm co-founder of Foresight Institute, currently senior fellow there. Longevity has been an interest for a long time, and you've got a good prize idea for the Biomarker Prize, the biomarker database. When I heard about that prize and I said, you mean we don't already have that? This is like super critical and we don't have this. So that this is an important idea. Just very briefly, I think there's something to be said for not having these prizes get too complicated. So I think biomarker database stands on its own. It's a huge project. It's incredibly important. I would tease out a separate prize. I think most of us realize that we're going to need not just one biomarker. It's going to be a panel of biomarkers. That's what the experts are telling me. Obviously, it's going to change over time. And the question is, well, how are we going to come up with this panel? So I'm proposing a prize that we have a competition to come up with the design process for our biomarker panel. How are we going to do this as a community? There's a lot of people who care a lot. It's going to be very controversial, but somehow we have to get to an initial proposed panel. So that's a separate idea, a longevity biomarker panel design process prize. That's it. Allison, back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Next one up, we have Daniel Eves. I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, everyone. Really excited to be part of this. I'm Daniel, CEO of Chef Bioscience. We're one of the companies on Alison's accelerator at the Foresight Institute. So feeling the speed, it's great. Yeah, just finding little tiny seeds that can grow into sort of big extra trees of knowledge is great. And like picking up on Sebastian's thread, there's lots of gems in history. I think it might have been Charles Brenner that mentioned Michael Rose and these fly experiments where they bred these long-lived flies, harnessing evolution to sort of flush out the biology. Like can we create systems like that flush out rejuvenation biology? I haven't thought about this very much, but that type of thing, I'm a big supporter of that. So I'm just interested to see what people come up with, and hopefully I'm a good judge.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. Next one up, we have David Furman, and I'm asking you to unmute now.
Hello, everybody. I am Stanford Thousand Immunome's project director. I've been with Stanford for about 15 years. My field is in human immunology, aging, and data sciences. My particular interest is in the biomarkers of aging that define immune system function and how those accelerate or decelerate aging processes in different systems. I have a faculty position at the Buck Institute. Recently, a couple of years ago, the Buck recruited me to lead the AI platform for the research on aging there. I am founder of two startups. One is Edifice Health, well-funded and growing well, and a new startup now that we started only 3 months ago. It's called Cosmica, that analyzes space-related dysfunction as a model of accelerated aging. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. We're excited to have you on board, David. Thank you so much. Next one up, we have Jean-Hubert.
Hello, I'm a professor at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine with growing links to industry to try to accelerate the research we're doing, which is to come up with ways of reversing brain aging by progressively replacing brain tissue. In terms of the markers, the one thing I would urge people to keep in mind is to think about markers that relate to proteins. I mean, it's basically what we're made of. A lot of those proteins don't turn over, especially in the extracellular environment. It's something that we still largely ignore. These are not easy things to measure, but any marker that starts incorporating that will be a much more, I think, diagnostic marker of actual age. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love how people are already on the fly coming up with prizes. It's not necessary. You can also just introduce yourself. We'll have all the time in the world, and we're always here for you as a judge if you want to propose a prize. But I'm really, really enjoying this off the cuff brainstorm. Next one up, we have Joe.
Greetings. I am Joe Beslacqua, and I'm CEO of a longevity biotech startup named Retro. And I am really excited about this, especially biomarker thing, but prices in general. A few years ago, I organized a symposium with Reg Kelly at UCSF specifically on biomarkers of aging, and that was great. And then it was over. And a lot of great discussions happened, but what I like about this is that we will be putting together a repository of actually actionable, like there'll be some like result from it that the whole community can use, and that's especially important to me right now because I'm running a discovery stage biotech company that is heading toward the clinic, and we need to be able to measure whether the things that we're making actually work or not. And it's actually hard to find good biomarkers that are practical and usable and measurable in people and like have good signal to noise ratio and all that. So I'm like triply excited about this project and looking forward to it succeeding. So thank you.
Triply excited. Okay, that is high praise. Okay. Wonderful. Jose, are you quadruply excited?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm like quadruply and keen to be excited. I'm Jose, the co-founder of Rejuvenome, which is a focused research organization set up as a collaboration between the Astera and the Bach Institutes to produce multi-omic atlases of aging, trippy, yes, of aging interventions in mice. We should have a publication next year, so stay tuned for that. And if you want us to try your favorite intervention, you can get in touch and we might try them. So very excited to be a judge for this prize, and yeah, so looking forward to see all the submissions.
Wonderful, thank you so much for coming on. Next one up, we have Keith.
Sure, yeah, I believe I think most of you I know, but Keith Camino, president of Lifespan.io, which raises funds and awareness for research aimed at extending healthy human lifespan. In addition to that, I also spearhead R&D projects for Disney, and I'm very interested in the Biomarker Prize that we're talking about here because from my vantage point in big tech, there is a lot of this sort of scaffolding that happens for other purposes that's very relevant to this process of structuring biomarkers. So for those of you who are on the call here, I'll put something in the chat, which was kind of walking through an example of how this is done for other biomarkers in big tech and how it can map directly to this process of how we can relate biomarkers to each other. So very excited about that and happy to be a part of this initiative. One other kind of prize idea I'd like to see perhaps in the future, building off of Sebastian's great idea, is I would love to see a kind of, I guess you could call it like pop culture related hypothesis prize of looking for where people can suggest where biomarkers are already being collected but not being used in some way. For example, a few years ago, there was an iPhone game that was based on navigating. And researchers discovered that since navigation is one of the first things that's lost when people undergo dementia, they structured a trial around using that game's data as an early predictor for dementia. So I think there's probably a lot of things out there that we don't know about that anybody could say, hey, I see that this is being used in this way. Maybe there's a way to use it for aging. So I think that could be a cool kind of prize idea.
Very cool. Okay, we're getting all kinds of diversity of prizes here. Next one up, we have Nia. It's so good to see you again.
It's nice to see everybody. So I'm few drops in this big wave that we're doing. So I'm with you guys. I'm also have my own aging center at Einstein with 8 investigators that are doing lots of the things that we were discussing. I'm also the scientific director of American Federation of Aging Research. I'm also one of the executives of the Longevity Biotech Association. I'm going to be one of the founders of the Longevity Medical Society. And what I'm saying is just we are doing a wave. We kind of know what to do. We are focusing, and I'm so excited to be part of this team and move things forward as fast as we can. Thank you so much, Alison.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. Next one up, we have Lawrence.
Hello, I'm a steward of the Deal Flow Working Group at VitaDAO. I have a background in computer science, but also a long-standing passion for biology, and I've been I just love the scientific method and try to apply it to everything in my life, especially to what I spend my time on to make the biggest difference. So it turns out I became an entrepreneur and investor, trying to now advance the assets that are usually stuck in early stage research in academic labs or in biotech companies that don't have the resources to advance those, and trying to speed things up towards them becoming startups and launch them towards them becoming medicine we can take. I'm a huge fan of the Hypothesis Prize. I always ask people for things that they think about, and most people don't think about in terms of approaches to solving longevity. And I'm also super excited about the submission that I also seconded on sort of shorting or trying to demonstrate that an important longevity research study is not true, that it fails, and also just something that I just added recently, a prize on using non-standard model animals like killifish and so on, either showing life extension in them, or so I'm open to suggestions here. Or the other idea would be to have something that doesn't work in the standard model animals, but would work in this unpopular animal, ideally a vertebrate or mammal that has been subject to natural selection of long lifespan, just like humans, where the low-hanging fruit has been picked off. Yeah, I'm looking forward to people submitting prizes and, of course, donations, so we can make this into a $1 billion prize and become bigger than the Nobel.
Yes, we'll definitely share a little bit at the end about how you can support this financially and in other ways. Next one up, we have Sonia.
Hi, Allison. Hi, everybody. It's great to see everyone. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of prizes. I think prizes work really well, and it helps to energize the community. So I'm super happy to be involved and be a judge in the prize in these prizes. So I'm on the board of the Foresight Institute. I run my own venture company called 100 Plus Capital. And I'm the sponsor of the Health Extension Salon for Foresight, where I know a lot of these faces today are in that salon. So it's great to see everyone. I'm also the chair of the Alliance for Longevity Initiatives, which is a new 501c4 that's lobbying. It's been around for about a year now. It'll be a year this month. And we're lobbying for longevity changes in Congress, because Congress doesn't know very much about the longevity space. And it'd be great if we had more funding and more support. And actually, biomarkers are a big part of what we're trying to do, because, of course, if we want the FDA to be approving therapies for longevity based like an anti-aging therapy, they need to have some way of measuring it, right? And so if we don't have biomarkers, it's a bit of a problem. So biomarkers are a really big deal, and so I think it's a good prize. One thing I'll say about it is, I hope that the prizes will award to for-profit as well as nonprofit, because there might be some for-profit people working on biomarkers right now. In fact, there probably are. And so I think the prize should go to any group that's doing some great work on biomarkers. The other thing I'll say is, I think that there's probably a lot of great gems to be found in the regenerative medicine area. More than a decade ago, when I started to get super interested in the longevity space 15 years ago, regenerative medicine was really taking off, and so many amazing things were happening. And then it kind of quieted. There were a few failures, and it kind of quieted down. But I think there's a lot of stuff that can be found there that can move us forward on the longevity front. So I'll just throw that out there.
Great. Okay. So we already have lots of different potential suggestions here. And we're in a moment going to try to record them all on a doc while we have you here. So I hold your thought. Finally, in terms of the judges who are at least here, we have Tim Peterson here. So I'm going to ask you to unmute as well. It's really wonderful to have you on board. Thank you, Sonia.
Hey everyone, I'm Tim Peterson. Thanks for having me. And so I have a history from the longevity space dating back to the mTOR field in the early 2000s, when that wasn't really spoke of as a field. So and just kind of always been interested in the space ever since then. I also second Keith's suggestion. I think he and I are kind of kindred spirits of kind of using data and evidence that we already have out in the wild. Kind of my favorite thing is like to figure out whether drinking more water is actually helpful for us. Like there's always this kind of thought about drinking 8 glasses a day. So like, what kind of data will we have on, detecting people's water consumption? What kind of data would be out there on that kind of stuff? So, so I think that's that underexplored area to kind of use the information we already have to detect things like dementia and other things, rather than creating new contraptions. Again, just excited to be here, and thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate it. And I think if there's one thing that we're trying to do is more like grow kind of like an ecosystem of judges as well. So even though you've heard from a lot already today, that's not even the full spectrum of the judges that we have on the entire standing panel. We know you guys are all busy, and so the idea is that different judges can pounce on the ideas that they think are perhaps the most exciting, and there may be different incentive mechanisms for this as well. So for those of you who would like to check out our other judges who couldn't make it today, then please refer to the longevityprize.com website. There's a bunch more to be discovered starting now. Okay, cool. So now we're going to go into the brainstorming bit, which, I think that many of us here at least, have enough, I think, trust and also, previous collaboration experience with each other, that I think it could be really fun to actually record a few of the suggestions that you guys have made on a Google Doc. And so we've made this doc and we're sharing this open source in the sense that you can contribute different ideas if you'd like. I know that we've heard a ton already. Like I counted 5 potential prizes already from your introductions. And so this document, will stay with us. It's the easiest way for you to comment, to actually suggest that you want to work on something. That will be our kind of like document that we'll be working from like shorting different prizes. And if you already have, a prize suggestion, if you're a community member that is right now on this call, we would love to hear from you. So if you do, then, feel free to raise your hand, say so in the chat, and we'll take you on. And for everyone else, please, if you really want to make sure that the prizes get recorded, also add them to the Google Doc. We'll also go through the recording afterwards, but if you want to make sure that, you say it in your own words, the Google Doc is now ready for grabs already here in the chat. I know that I think Sava already had a prize idea. So if you just want to unmute for a sec and suggest one, then we can now move into a bit more open brainstorming before answering a few general questions and next steps.
Yeah, hi guys. So my background is mainly in intellectual property law. I'm a commercial and IP lawyer. I did my master's thesis on gaps in the patent system for drug development, and particularly for incentivizing the repurposing of generic drugs and nutraceuticals and things like diets and lifestyle interventions, other things where basically you can't enforce a monopoly price. And specifically looking at prizes as an alternative private incentive to create a business model for developing those drugs. I actually reached out to Methuselah Foundation over 10 years ago, sort of looking at prizes, and I was really inspired by the Methuselah Mouse Prize. And this is basically what we're trying to hopefully do is crowdfund a prize or a bounty to incentivize the repurposing of an off-patent drug to improve longevity, healthy longevity. Obviously, some roadblocks in the way is determining what's an appropriate biomarker, particularly something that would be FDA accepted by the FDA once they come around to looking at aging as a disease. But I think initially we can look at functional biomarkers, things like strength, and addressing sort of age-related sarcopenia, things like that. So also working with Dr. Brad Stanfield, who's doing he's trying to raise money for a clinical trial to look at rapamycin plus exercise. So exercise during the week and then rapamycin on the weekend to balance out mTOR, and with the hypothesis that will improve strength in elderly, with the primary clinical outcome as a trend towards improvement, also safety, and a trend towards improvement in the 30-second chair stand test. So that's what we're working on. Anyone that's interested in chatting about it, just reach out to me. I can drop my email in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sava. And next one up, we have Kat.
Hey, thanks, Alison. I'm Kat, and I'm a contributor at VitaDAO, and also work on the Longevity Prize with Vincent and Alison and Aaron here. I'm very excited to be here. I mean, I won't repeat like what everyone has shared about the Longevity Prize, because I think we're all on board with the vision. But one piece I haven't heard being mentioned that I'm personally very excited about, is kind of my crusade in the Longevity Prize, is to open up longevity and make it more accessible to everyone and like scientists in other fields. An example would be over Let's Dance for the Weekend, for example. I was talking to Alexandra about stem cell therapy, and we all know how that went, but we had the talk like, so if the stem cell scientist was talking to longevity scientists, they would learn about senescence, and then they would probably have better experiments and methods and so on. Anyway, so I mean, long story short, I think there's a lot of potential to collaborate and to come up with better ideas if we had more idea exchange between scientific fields. And so as part of the Longevity Prize, what I'm really exploring is how to make the prize accessible and popular, not just among the longevity community, but also to other scientific communities as well, how to get more people on board. And I'm I'm open to any ideas, any like help in that space. So.
Wonderful. Okay, we have another person who just mentioned that they have a few ideas. Sergio, it's really nice to see you again, Sergio. We'd love to hear from you as well.
Likewise, it's so good to see so many familiar faces. Everybody's doing so well. And thank you so much, Allison, and everybody involved for the Longevity Prize. It's exciting. One thing that I was thinking about is just a series of best-in-class prizes. Think about nothing that is too expensive when it comes down to actually granting a prize, but something that will allow for competition within this niche subsectors of longevity. Think of about best-in-class analytic, best-in-class mitochondrial dysfunction solution, best-in-class, all we can actually just use the hallmarks of aging for a way to address this categories. What that would do is actually create an autocatalytic year-by-year competition, so that one year we'll have maybe a new thing come out and be given the label, the Longevity Prize, I guess, certificate that this was the 2022, 2023 best in class for this particular thing. It's kind of like a golden standard. And I just want to echo Sonia's point. It's really important to get the private sector involved. I know a lot of us are attached to foundations, right? Like myself, I'm happy to be part of the Methuselah Foundation, but we also wear different hats, and we're trying to take a lot of this really good science forward. In my case, for example, Turn through the Methuselah Fund and other portfolio companies, Lucadia, Ocean, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really important to try to get that investor or that kind of data that is walled by fiduciary duty to the investors, and create some kind of incentive to draw that out and to share it with the community. So I just want to echo that. I think that's a great point, but some kind of a best-in-class series of prizes might be a good opportunity.
Cool. Okay. Wow. We're beaming with proposals here. Thank you so much, Sergio. Now we also have a few more that just raised hands. So this is getting exciting. Okay, let's see how many we can get through. Will, you are first.
Yes, hello. Hi, everyone. My name is William Wolfhang. I'm an MD PhD student at Case Western Reserve University. And so I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. When people think about these prizes and potential proposals, do they include aging-related diseases such as cancer, Alzheimer's, or are people more concerned with the direct process of like cellular aging?
Well, I think David, okay, David also would like to, okay, sorry, that's more for the Q&A. I think those are all bits that we are currently figuring out in the judging process. I think, this is the first time all judges are coming together, and there's still some leeway to figure that out. If you think this is a specific thing of why that's related to longevity, my initial idea would be that's fair game, at least to submit. If anyone wants to contradict me, now is a wonderful time to do so by raising your hand, because I'm one voice of very, very many.
No, I'd agree. So it's pretty open, and it's going to be like piecemeal. So as you suggested, then we'll consider it case by case rather than trying to create kind of blanket rules at this stage of the prize.
Okay, let's see how many other folks we can get through. Jordan, you're next, and I will unmute you now.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I just wanted to propose the idea for an additional prize, maybe a translational prize to help bring basic science and preliminary findings more towards patient care that might have been discovered in mouse models or proof of concept. I'm a postdoc at the Buck Institute and a physician by training, so that would be something very important to me, and I think something that would really benefit the field in general.
Cool. Okay, noted. If you want to make sure we record it, please add it to the document as well. That would be wonderful. Next one up we have. Thank you. Next one up we have Larry.
I may want to have a little contrarian view. I'm kind of against prizes. I mean, I think the worst thing in science has been a Nobel Prize. I think it really has corrupted science. It's created much more damage. I mean, I've known people who've gotten Nobel Prizes, and I've known people who haven't gotten Nobel Prizes, and who should have. And it just corrupts science. It stops collaboration and things like that. How to have something that really fosters a collaborative community. A lot of times prizes act the exact opposite of that. And and so I would how to get a real collaborative community going to address problems. Prizes can actually work against you, because somebody who doesn't win a prize thinks I should have won and this guy shouldn't have, and it just you got to be real careful with prizes, I think. And I think Nobel's biggest mistake was the Nobel Prize, and I think it should be banned. I mean, for the good of science. I mean, we got this crazy guy out there, Malone, who's with the anti-vax information, and he's out there basically because he thought he should win a Nobel Prize. And, so it just has corrupted science so much. And I think you have to really be careful with prizes.
That tells me we should do a constructive criticism prize, perhaps. But I think,
if you get a prize that awards collaboration and working together, I think science, that's how things really get done. And oftentimes that's, prizes do the exact opposite.
Yeah, look, we hear you. And I think Vincent, mentioned this already at the beginning. And when we do the closing, we'll definitely get to this again. This is a pretty unusual prize in the sense that it's not like this one large looming thing that only one person can win. You can apply as teams. There's a bunch of different prizes. The first prize is just to propose a hypothesis for an undervalued area in longevity. And you get 20K for that. And that is because oftentimes people like scientists that have really wonderful ideas don't get rewarded for those ideas. Other people, go take them and even for their due diligence work, and they may not get rewarded. So we're trying to kind of turn that upside down. Many of the prizes are extremely collaborative. Many of them, for example, we're experimenting also with the prize mechanisms. So potentially there could be prizes by which, based on who judges find best, there's different tranches that get paid out. There can be a number of different prizes that can get paid out to teams. So I think, we hear your criticism. This one is a little bit more of an ecosystem grower, where ultimately we want to list a bunch of bounties, larger prizes, together with more incentive schemes for collaboration as well. And so it's, I guess, it is as ambitious as the Nobel, but in the structure, I think rather different. And if any one of the other judges or prize contributors wants to say a few words about that, feel free to do so. But we invite all of you guys to be a part in shaping this prize into more of an ecosystem generator, rather than this one large hanging fruit that only one person can win.
I'd like to add that one of the plans here is to make a bunch of small prizes, but also the prize itself is probably going to be relatively low given the nature of the payoff of whatever it is that we're trying to get people to build. And so it's really just a catalyst. And if multiple people who enter, they just want to combine forces afterwards to pursue something that then pays off way more, logarithmically larger amounts of money than the prize can provide, that's totally fine. And I think that there's going to be some mechanisms to allow people to give prize money directly to other teams that enter, if they choose to, for donors, if they're like, oh, that team won, but I really like what they're doing over here, they can just sidestep the process and donate directly to other teams if they want to. I think that's part of the plan. So we'll have mechanisms in there for countering that hyper competitiveness, and we'll just have to see how it goes and figure it out as we go along.
Yeah, I love that we went from brainstorming content ideas for the prize to brainstorming new prize mechanisms, which is what we want to close this meeting with. But I think before we get there, I just wanted to make sure we also hear from David. And so Dave, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Okay, a couple of quick things. One was the foundation recognized several years ago that when we set ourselves this mission to make 90 the new 50 by 2030, One of the first things we realize is, do we really know what's the difference between a 90-year-old and a 50-year-old in sufficient fidelity to be able to know if you actually achieved your goal? So we commissioned a study called Making 90 the New 50 by 2030, in which we put together an evidence-based document by mining the literature, as has been mentioned many times, and coming up with a panel of biomarkers that were functionally relevant. These are not like methylation kinds of clocks. These are the things that any clinician could test. They might not be able to be covered by insurance, but they're testable and they're relatable and they're annotated and relevant, evidence-based. And that's why I was so attracted to the Biomarker Prize, because we need to know not just the one marker, but the panoply, the waterfront of markers in order to know if we're getting anywhere before, a 10-year prize, as was mentioned. That's why we've never done a longevity prize. They just take way too long. Isn't going to work. So what we want to do is, Dane alluded to this earlier, what we want to do is to offer that to this process as perhaps call it the seed yeast for the Biomarker Prize. So Aaron, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but we will be happy to send you a link. I think Sergio, did you just put the link there? Yeah. Number two, none of this science is going to get anywhere if we have to wait for and spend the money on so many animals being tortured in order to find out if we can make mice live forever. And yes, I'm the world's earliest proponent of making mice live longer with the Methuselah Mouse Prize, along with Aubrey. However, we know that mice are becoming less and less relevant, and all animals are becoming less and less relevant as we have new panels, 3D tissue constructs, and so forth. So we might as well throw it out there that we have $500,000 sitting there as a challenge grant for a animal-free research initiative prize. So you might want to add that to your database, and we're working with A4LI to socialize this concept, and we have more announcements to come. But boy, wouldn't it be great if we could reduce the time it takes to get a drug to market by 2/3, increase the likelihood that they're going to work in the first place by 2/3, and reduce the cost of the whole schmozzle by 2/3. This is necessary if we're going to make it by 2030. I'm done.
Wonderful. Okay, we'll definitely add that to the repertoire. Thank you, David. Okay, we have 2 more minutes left, and I do want to make sure we get to next steps. And so maybe very briefly, Keith, and then David, we want to hear from you as well. But if you could keep it brief, that would be wonderful.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. I just want to build off what David was saying in that when we're talking about this panoply of biomarkers, again, this is referenced in the video that I dropped earlier, which is using how ARPA turned into the internet as a model for how we get this panoply of biomarkers. It's important, I think, for us to disambiguate 2 purposes of a suite of biomarkers: the causality of what's actually affecting your rate of aging, and just if there's a change in your rate of aging, period. So I think that the important thing to note here is that the latter thing is still very useful as a signal for, if that was applied to all clinical trials, if we just knew something was happening with your aging. And in order to do that, I think we only need, to David's point, a panoply of these very functional physiological biomarkers. And I don't, maybe we should talk, David, but like this work is already long been in development. I think I actually talked to Aaron about this a few years ago. There are, I guess you can call them kiosks being built that are able to collect like these like 30 what do they call them, deficit accumulation indices, right? And if anyone's going to the conference that we're having in a week, the Ending Age-Related Disease Conference, you'll see I have an interview with Ron Kohansky from the NIA talking about exactly this and how this will open up the gates for a lot more trials to target aging. So squarely
wonderful. Thank you. And last but not least, we have David, and then we'll finish with next step.
Yeah, I'm proposing something slightly different that has to do with how biomarkers are affected by the exposome. Ultimately, what we are eating, how we, quality of the air we breathe, how we sleep, the level of stress defines by large our longevity, and we know that. So if there was a way where I could use a simple blood draw and predict what you were eating last night, the quality of your sleep last night, maybe some other important determinants of health, I could map those things to early aging or delayed aging. And I could potentially figure out what are the most significant contributors of that type of biomarker, longevity biomarkers, I guess. So we started doing that in with a French database. It didn't work because the database is quite scarce. So I think one of the things that is kind of a dream for me would be to increase that database, or maybe even run a study where I put different people to eat different things and have different levels of pollution, then measure before and after, and create that database for the community to be used and to map, expose them to biomarkers, in summary.
Wonderful. Okay, I can't wait to get this on the doc. Thank you so much. This brainstorming session was super constructive. Larry, if you're still here, I'm hoping that you may even suggest an FDA prize. Who knows? We would certainly love to have that. And if nothing, then at least a constructive criticism prize. But I think, I think one thing that we've done here within 1 hour only is introduce the prize, introduce the judges, and brainstorm a few content ideas, and finish with a few prize mechanism proposals. So thank you so much for being here for that. I do want to say, if you want to suggest different prizes or prize mechanisms for that matter, or collaborations on additional prizes, then please email kat@vitadao.com or Aaron with AA at foresight.org. Those are from VitaDAO and Foresight, at least, the main folks who will be spearheading this. And if you want to donate to get these prizes rolling, like many of these prizes started very, very small, and then a bunch of other people were just like, hey, this looks exciting. I always want to do a prize. And this should in the long term really be more of an ecosystem for bounties, prizes, where different people can propose a prize for something that you always want to put a price tag on, but you never really had, let's say, the community where you'd actually see through a longevity prize with. We have the community now, so we are kind of putting this out at a Schelling point where different people can join us in proposing additional prizes. You can fund these prizes. You can directly donate, for example, to Foresight Institute. We are 501c3 in the US, and so your donation is, according to the US laws, has tax exemptions, and that's on foresight.org/donate, and email me at a@foresight.org. That is for the longevity prize. And if you want to donate crypto, you can do so through Ethereum to longevityprize.eth. And so there's a bunch of different ways in which you can support us. We will have all of this up on the website again, but I just want to mention it to you guys that we're still so early stage. We're really, really happy to collaborate. We're happy to propose all kinds of new different mechanisms with you guys. And we're super excited that you're here so early for really growing like a more of an ecosystem and a kind of like an avalanche of new ideas, where it's almost like a job board where different people can propose different topics that they would like to see explored, and other people can chime in and make them happen. Wonderful. So I just want to see Vincent, Kat, Aaron, do you have any final finishing thoughts to close it out with?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo like the earlier point on the criticism of prizes. Like I'm like the really first idea like I had a while ago was even on like calling it bounties and making it more like a Schelling point for people to work on like more short-term achievements together. So I think like the spirit of this is like not like too much competition, but of course there is also, I think, some benefit to more like a friendly competition, but also to join forces, I think, on specific efforts and to create this Schelling point. And then really also, of course, the awareness coming out of participating in these prizes and giving a spotlight to the top participants. So just wanted to add this and excited to work together on this with everyone.
Yeah, you guys can really shape it. I mean, given the fact that we already had a Google Doc out on this first call, I think you know that just the, I guess, rather collaborative and open-ended nature in which we want to take it. And yeah, please, there's an open call. Please guide us by proposing new ideas, by donating to ideas that you would like to see funded. Soon enough on the website, we will have a bunch of potential prize ideas that you can basically stock up by donating to them in addition to the price that we can already put on them. So the longevity prize is herewith opened. Thank you all so much for joining. It was really, really wonderful to see so many of you again in one room. And yeah, we're terribly excited. And I do want to say Hypothesis Prize is also open, so that can already be applied to on the website, and you can win up to 20K for submitting the best proposal. So the collaboration is open herewith, and it was really wonderful to see all of you. And I'll see you soon again in our respective virtual and in-person collaborations. And this wasn't the last time we meet as a prize committee. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much to our judges, to our collaborators, and thank you to everyone who's made it here. I think this is a really wonderful effort, and we can't wait to go this with you. Thanks, everyone.